So I was making a video between an FBA and a South African girl, which to be fair, I don't even like the way that she made her video. But yes, everybody is trying to play a game with each other here, which is pretty scary. And I think we have to continue the rest of the video. Now, here's the scary part. This guy, FBA guy, has Chase, has a lot of insight when it comes to some of the stuff that African Americans are doing in terms of Lewis Latimer and all of these. But there's something kind of odd about putting that all on the back of like insulting people. But again, everybody has their own style of performance. So let's carry on with the video.
She's going to start responding back to comments. Okay, so, she's going to start responding back to comments in the comment section because some foundational Black Americans came and got on them. The overwhelming majority was people in agreements. But nonetheless, she responds back to the people in the comment section. Somebody said, she's recording the white part of South Africa. Video record your side, twin. Basically what he was saying. And so this is what a lot of Africans and Caribbeans do. This is the new age version of capping. What she did was she posted a video of some big houses in her village, I guess, Limpopo.
So what he's saying could be true about that very specific image that he is showing, but in real life, most of the places now are, occupied by Black people. This is Polokwane in Limpopo. It's part of the city. It's filled with Black people. But, we'll get back to that. I want him to get to his bigger point. Now, I don't know if he doesn't understand sarcasm, but when she says village, she's of course trying to make fun of the fact that people think that she lives in a village, when in real life we know that Africans, most of them, South Africans, live in cities or towns or even townships. Then you have people who live in villages, which, by the way, a lot of those villages are now having like modern buildings because, of course, you don't have to pay a lot of rent or anything like that. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to talk over this part because they play music in this part of the video, and I don't know how he doesn't get copyrighted, but when I tested the video, I got a copyright strike on it. So again, these are pretty good houses, and yes, they're already complete. I think there's a part where he's going to say they're not complete and that they're just test houses.
Oh, well, okay, but here's the reality, family. The same province that she just showed us, which a lot of them do. One second. Now let's actually go to statistics, family. This is the province she was showing us. Remember how they were showing those mansions? And I told you this is common flexing in South Africa. What they like to do is create this illusion that they're really living like that. They'll show you the 3 or 4 mansions in their whole province and try to act like that's how they're living.
So, of course, I mentioned last time that there is inequality in South Africa. And so some people in South Africa are going to be living pretty rough life, right? And it's pretty rough for some South Africans. Now, you could tell by this girl's house that she is not living that rough of a life. Uh, this is not a poverty stricken person. She might be, maybe living with her parents, or she's doing well for herself. I don't know. But this is not somebody, this type of house is not someone living outside. Now, let me talk about the cost of living. Now, for a lot of people in South Africa who are very unemployed, these houses would be completely out of reach. But I think, because I've seen houses like this where I live, I think that the reason why he says that these are like super mansions or whatever is because, again, of cost of living. These types of houses are not as expensive as he thinks they are. Can the average person afford them? No. Can the average middle class person afford them? Probably not. Can the slightly above middle class person afford them? I think so. I don't think you have to be a billionaire to afford these in South Africa. Now you could say, okay, but what about millionaires? But you have to be careful about what a millionaire is in South Africa because again, the cost of living is slightly lower. So according to property24.co.za, this is the 5 million rand houses. Now, 5 million rand sounds like a lot of money, right? Except if you count it in dollars. Now, I mentioned it's kind of weird to count how many millionaires there are in South Africa. The reason for that is because it depends what you're talking about, dollars or rands. So in dollars, there's about 50,000 millionaires in South Africa. And this is not counting billionaires, of which most of them live offshore anyway. But then there are 500,000 millionaires in rands, and this house is 5 million rand. So in number, we're talking about, 500,000 people, which is a small percentage of the population, which is 60 million. Of those 60 million, of course, there are people who are somewhere in the middle class. Then there are the poor, which there are a lot. Then there's people who are unemployed, but some people don't realize when they count the unemployed, they're also counting people who are living in families where the family themselves are not uh, destitute and they will be getting a job in the future.
This is Limpopo province in South Africa. It has one of the highest poverty rates in the country, okay? The same place she just showed us, okay? So she went and showed you the two mansions. In 2022, the unemployment rate in Limpopo was 36.3%. That's an extremely high unemployment rate.
It definitely is. And if you read the unemployment rate for South Africa, the country, you would fall out of your seat. And of course, there's still the informal employed people in South Africa who are not really added into that. But without counting those people, because it's not like they're informal because they're getting paid millions, they're getting paid a small amount of money. Not counting those people in South Africa, yes, there is wealth disparity. And in that very province, there's about 36%, which is a ridiculous amount of people. I mean, if you compare it to countries which they call first world nations, or even China, we're talking about really, really, really high poverty rate.
Extremely high. Understand in the United States, they try to keep unemployment just under 5%. Okay, so 36.3% according to statistics in South Africa.
Well, I don't think anybody will disagree that America is definitely doing better than South Africa in terms of economy and everything. But what needs to be taken into mind is the youth of South Africa. Like, how young is South Africa for the black people who have taken over? I mean, let's take when black South Africans were really allowed to have great cities and be part of the South Africa project. That's like since 1994. I mean, how many years is that? 30? But again, I don't want to pretend as if like South Africa does not have poverty. South Africa does have poverty, which is one of the reasons why, they're very upset about illegal immigration and stuff like that, because more people are coming into the unofficial sector of employment, which is not added to this. And then they're taking away from the few people who can't even get employed in South Africa in the official sectors.
And they also indicated, peep this family, that the poverty head count in Limpopo is 4.1 million, which is 77% of the population living in poverty.
So I don't like that he's using AI because it doesn't give a good 100% reading, and it loses context as well. So you must understand that there's a lot of rural areas in Limpopo, and the rest of South Africa. And yes, that does count those people too. Now, as I said, a lot of people live in cities and stuff like that. So there is a lot of poverty in these places, whether they're townships, cities, or towns in general. Now, we must remember that a lot of these places are very family oriented. And so you might find a household where there's, as they're right here, female led houses, and then there's male led houses and stuff like that, where these poverty people, right, will be living with someone who's not poor, and there's going to be 5 or 6 of them grown ups living with somebody. And so the way you count it is very, very different. Now, trend wise, Limpopo has been going up in terms of poverty, the poverty rate. So I'm not making any excuses. The government is screwing up when it comes to taking care of the people. And I think that part the world needs to hear, so that the government can be squeezed until we get a better government. But still, South Africa is up there in African countries. I mean, I already showed you that part.
Okay. 77% of the population is living in poverty, but she wants to try to create an image by showing you 3 or 4 mansions that, oh, damn, they're living this sophisticated life. That's cap. Okay? That's cap, family. And we got to start pulling people cars on this. See, we don't have to get emotional. We don't have to get emotional. Let's just start pulling cars. Okay, you're living so great. You're showing us mansions in Limpopo. Okay, let's go and see what the poverty rate is.
Now, to be fair, that girl herself is probably not living the poverty life, just based on, I mean, just everything. Like, her lifestyle does not look like she's poor. Her accent did not come across as if she grew up in a rough place or any of that. But I know the point, if it's about generally where she says she lives in Limpopo, it's gonna be true that she's gonna have well, you're gonna have a lot of people in those areas which are poor, and in South Africa in general.
Let's go see how people are really living out there, family. But hold on, I'm not done. Hold on. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go to South Africa just in general. One second, family. Let's go to South Africa just in general. Okay. In South Africa, approximately 64% of Black South Africans live in poverty.
So we've already talked about this when we were discussing the Dutch people in South Africa who claimed that they were being genocided and stuff. And I mentioned that most stuff in South Africa is owned by the Europeans. So of course, most black people in South Africa are economically trying to climb out of poverty, compared to the white people who have inherited a lot of wealth. And this is true for where I live as well, which is like 50% white, 50% black. And the white people here, they pretend that they're being, well, they like the arguments that the black people are attacking them, when in real life that's nowhere close to what's happening. They've inherited their wealth. And I said it before. I said, if you look up the unemployment rate of South Africans in general, which I think that AI is wrong, it's not 64%, but it is up there, then you will fall out of your chair.
And again, I'm not saying this to make fun of South Africans. I'm pointing out statistics. See, if you're going to start showing videos, because according to the image you were trying to project, I would have thought all of y'all were living in mansions. She said that's her side of town. That's how they living. Okay.
Which again might be true for her, which is why she can worry about stuff like random Zulu parades going on in America. I'll be honest, I did not see it. If it wasn't for this video, I wouldn't have even known that there was some Zulu parade happening in the other parts of the world. Most South Africans don't give a damn. In fact, there could be a Zulu parade in America where they're literally punching them in the belly or something, and most people in South Africa will probably not care, because they have more important things to worry about, which I mentioned in the other video.
64% of Black South Africans live in poverty, according to South African Human Rights Commission. Okay. This figure has been consistently reported across various studies and reports indicating a high level of poverty within the population group.
So again, I don't like the use of AI, but I will explain. I'm not even going to change these numbers because I think the numbers are actually somewhat correct. I think they're in the 50s, not the 60s. But we must explain that in South Africa, there's many poverty lines. Now, there's the international poverty line, which, South Africans are way below that in general, and Africans in general are way below that. But there's three poverty ones that we need to consider. So there's upper bound poverty, which is about 1,634 Rand a month, which I think most of these people in poverty will definitely be below that number. And then there's the lower bound poverty line, which is about 1,058 Rand, which, these numbers, if you're rattling them off in South Africa, you are not paying rent anywhere if you're making this amount of money in South Africa. This is, you're living with somebody, and this is the amount of money you're making per month. And if you're not living with somebody, then the state of your life is probably not very good. And of course, the food poverty line, which is 796 Rand. Now, to be fair, the government gives some people grants, which are close to this amount of money, which allows them to live. This is the same as that I forgot what it's called in America, where they give food or money to people who are poor. Now, the AI information that he provided, the problem with it, it doesn't give any context of which level of poverty they're in. Like if we read the first one, we say minimum requirements for daily energy intake. This also commonly includes extreme poverty line. The second one, this refers to the food poverty line plus the average amount derived from non-food items of households whose total expenditure is equal to the food poverty line. And then the third one, this refers to food poverty line plus the average amount derived from non-food items of households whose food expenditure is equal to the food poverty line. So again, you have to be careful about how you count these. South Africa has got this thing where it just calculates things the way that European countries counts things, but you have to be careful how you count things. And also there's a lot of South Africans who have to be careful not to try and live European lives when they first start off, when they're living in Africa, and they have to, I've actually seen Europeans who say this. I remember there was a documentary I watched where this guy from England was like, "Oh, I can't find a job, blah, 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 blah." And then they asked him when was the last time he asked for a job. And the guy said like 3 years ago. And he went and met some French girl who moved to England, who was living with like 10 people in a house, 10 other grown-ups in a house to save money. And she used to work in the fashion industry, and she gave that up to go work at like a shop and live with 10 people, which I will say that is kind of the problem. I mean, you got to have let's just say the hustler's mentality that you got to, when it's tight, you got to be tight. When you got to find a path out of it. Which, by the way, is why South Africans who do have a lot of money and realize the poverty of the black people who live in South Africa still talk about these issues a lot, because a lot of them go, just stop talking about all of these issues and just get to it. It's like, do you see the poverty rate? Do you understand the state of living of South Africans? Do you understand why they sing the songs that people say are controversial?
All right, let's just pull statistics. No need for us to get emotional, twin. All right, no need for us to get emotional. But hold on, let's continue, because she started showing more parts. Hold on.
So I have to definitely talk over this part because he plays music, and the music is 100% copyrighted.
Let's pause it. Let's wait. She says the heart of Soweto. This is the heart of Soweto. This is a township in Soweto, because she's showing us her side. I guess she's trying to debunk the poverty that is in South Africa, because now she's showing us Soweto.
Okay, so this part is indefensible, but I have to say again, it looks like sarcasm to me. Like, it looks like she's trying to say that South Africa has some rich places too. But of course, Soweto is one of the poorest places, I mean, really on earth. And it gets pretty bad over there. It gets bad in a lot of places in South Africa. If she is trying to paint the picture that South Africa is like some super rich place, I mean that is cap. I guess that is like a lie. If that's the picture she's trying to paint, it's good if you've got money, right? And when I say money, I don't mean. Let me think. So let's put it in terms of wealth, right? So in America, the median income is about, I mean, today, 2025, it's about 52,000. That's annual income for just about anybody in America, black, white, whatever. Households tend to be about 78,000, but now it's like somewhere like 100K. So let's take this 40,000. Now, this is why I said you have to be careful how you count millionaires in South Africa, because this is a millionaire. And remember the type of house I showed you that you can buy in 5 years in South Africa. I don't know how long it will take you in America. In 5 years in South Africa, you can afford those luxury houses that I was showing you. So if you were a teacher in America and somehow you kept all your money, right? And you wanted to pay for a mansion in South Africa, you could. You know, they'll start at about 2 million rand going up to about 5, 10, 15 million. But you could buy it in South Africa because they're not that expensive. Again, these statistics are very complicated things. The way they work is very complicated. What we're talking about here is very complicated. But he is right on this point that the picture she is painting is not accurate of South Africa. This is similar to the video that I showed, remember, of the Cartier family, where for 1 second they broke into sympathy for the Africans and said, okay, I can see why they're mad. When he showed that something like 5% or 10% of the land is owned by black South Africans.
It ain't nobody in the driveway, family. This look like a new development. It don't even look like it's open yet. Okay, this looks brand new township. It doesn't even look like it's open yet. Okay, I don't see nothing in the driveway. A few cars going down the street. Okay, very interesting.
So I had this video ready, of course, and it shows a drone view of Limpopo. And you can see here that it's not a selected video. Like, there's some places in Limpopo which are very well done and they're doing pretty well. So no, the way that that girl is separating those videos, it's actually very um selective, yes, but I think it's because she probably doesn't know that much about South Africa in general. Now, as you can see here, there are houses which are huge in South Africa, and as I said, they probably, for Americans especially, don't cost as much as you guys think they would. You guys would, well, Americans would be doing themselves a favor owning a house in South Africa. And of course, some of these places that look like this have low crime rate compared to some of the poverty areas. Now, I should have shown this earlier because now he's moved on to Soweto, and Soweto is a completely different story to the entire Limpopo areas. Now, there's areas in Limpopo which are worse than Soweto, but you know, there's a big difference between an entire province and one small part of Gauteng.
Okay, so that's Soweto, but we gotta slow cook this thing now. We can't let them get away with nothing. We can't let these folks get away with nothing because they don't let us get away with anything. So I said, damn, well, let me see how people in Soweto are living. Maybe this is the good side because she's showing us her side. Okay. Damn, shit, they damn near stopped doing current studies on Soweto. I couldn't even find no modern day stuff. But this is, according to a few sources, Soweto has a high poverty rate. According to 2017 reports from South Africa Market Insight, a significant portion of Soweto's population, roughly 19%, earn no income. None. They don't earn any income. 19%. Okay. Additionally, a 2019 New York Times article noted that over half of young people younger than 35 in Soweto are jobless. So high unemployment rates and high poverty. But I said, that's coming from like the West though. That's coming from the West, but then the ancestors.
Well, so obviously there's high economic failure in Soweto due to the history of South Africa, which we don't even need to go to through that deeply. But again, I don't even want to hide this part of it because I think people need to know around the world what's actually going on in South Africa, the wealth disparity, because that's where it comes down to. And I said it in that other video when I was talking about that other person, the difference between the rich and the poor.
The ancestors put a video in front of me, family. They put a video in front of me. Let's go to the video. This video.
First, let's do Soweto.
Now, this video, family, is about 10 minutes long because, again, we're going to slow cook this thing. I got time today. We're going to slow cook this thing. This video is about 10 minutes long. And if you notice this video, Sabu or SBU Live, I don't know how she goes by or what the words stand for, but I've reacted to one of her videos before. She is a foundational Black American. She moved out to South Africa. She's very Pan-African. Okay, she's has extremely strong Pan-African mindset. She's always kind of throwing shade at her own lineage for some reason. She's always talking about Black Americans have no culture. Black Americans are lazy. But recently, family, she just uploaded this video. And she was talking about the extreme levels of poverty in Soweto, ironically.
Okay, so this is going to be an interesting video. I think it's actually going to give a lot of good view into South Africa and the way that people live in general. But, there's a lot that I have to say. First of all, I don't think she would identify as a foundational Black American. She probably identify as African American. But then, secondly, she's probably Pan African because there is a value to that is different than just identifying with one piece of location that you're in. And then, of course, there's the third thing that he said that now the criticizing of African Americans like they're lazy and stuff, that's stupid. I don't like that type of behavior. But I'm already worried about the way he's going down this way. He's sort of also he's not explaining a lot of the poverty that's happening in South Africa. He's like just throwing it out there, which I think is okay, right? If it's the truth, it's the truth. But it must be contextualized that South Africa, again, is about, for Black people, 30 years old. So you're talking about people who lived in areas which were purposefully built by white people to be poor. And now they've got 30 years to pull themselves out of that. No education, no nothing. Imagine what life was like for African Americans 30 years after they got out of any of that stuff that happened in the past.
The same place that this woman was showing these nice townships, acting like the majority of the population is living like that. Those townships that didn't even look like nobody was in it, probably those are for white folks. But let's just see what they say about Soweto and what they show us. 10-minute video. Slow cook, real slow cook. We turning up the eye a little bit. Turn up the eye. Them greens is sizzling right now. We making some soul food. Let's get it.
So he said those areas, probably white people live there. And I have to explain easily that although a lot of white people are very rich in South Africa, there's not nearly enough of them to cover all the rich houses in South Africa. And then, of course, there's some newly poor white people, because once you introduce black people into the markets, some failures start to happen, because before they were protecting white people as a population, and then now, of course, because they don't have that that protection from racism, then a lot of them start to, fall out from the bottom. The people who were clinging on, holding on by a thread, and they were only surviving because they were white. Your drug addicts, all of these people who they do bad things, but they can survive because they're part of a greater network, which then has them isolated because they have to move into black communities with poverty.
First.
Wow.
All right. So we're going to get a bit more serious. As you know, and as you can see, that South Africa has a lot of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It is in my opinion, a very wealthy country.
South Africa has a lot of wealth for who?
For wealthy black people and wealthy white people. It is true that on average, white people have more rich people than black people, but there's a lot of black people who are rich in South Africa who also need to be accountable for the way that they acquire their wealth, and also these tactics that international governments use to try and keep the general poverty poor, by having the rich black people accept deals that will make it so that other people can climb out of that poverty. Because don't think that it's just some kind of like accident that these people are poor. It is not some accident. There are structures put in, which is why we want structures to help lift them out of that poverty.
For who? Because 1 second, we're going to come back to this, family, because we got to break down everything, because these are the things they kind of push out there. South Africa got a lot of wealth. Okay, let's be clear, family. Now, hold on. Now, in 2023, this is according to statistics. Black South African household had an average income of 143,632 rand, okay, which is equivalent to $7,531.66 a year, okay? And we already know as well, as I showed you guys earlier, that 64% of the Black South African population in general is living in poverty, okay? So when she says a lot of wealth, she can't be talking about the Black South African population.
So by this point, a lot of you are starting to realize that the math is starting to not add up here. So in 2023, Black South African households had an average annual income of 143,000 rand, which is lower than the average of households in general, which is 204,000 rand, but it's only by 40,000 rand. Now, realize this: even though he got this information from the same AI, he sort of doubts it, because he then has to apply this other level of, oh, but we already saw that they're poor, blah, blah, blah. There's a difference in South Africa between households, in other words, families and stuff, and how much they can earn together versus what each person can earn completely on their own, which again, I think if you live in an area where there's extreme poverty, trying to live on your own is not the cleverest thing you can do. Again, I mentioned that woman who was from France, who came to England, made money quick, but it was not a lot. And we're talking about France, one of the richest places in the world. And she had to live with 10 other people paying rent in order to get herself out of poverty.
And I have to go there, family. I have to go there. So I want to put everything into context. Let's be clear. The wealth is with the white South Africans. It's with the white South Africans. But I'll let her continue.
A lot of the wealth is with the white South Africans, and no excuses should be made about that. But there's definitely a lot of wealthy Black South Africans. And again, no excuses should be made about that either.
Okay, because she's in Soweto.
But there is a lot of disparity. And it is in my opinion, a very wealthy country. but there is a lot of disparity. And we actually had an opportunity to see this firsthand. It actually opened my eyes a lot to just the problems that we have here. And well, it's just not here, y'all. It's everywhere, but it's different here. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm someone that has grown up in the United States, and we are quite privileged in the United States. And this is not a lie. This is a firsthand confession.
So, as I mentioned before, the tens of trillions of dollars that are generated by America does not compare to the hundreds of billions in South Africa. Like, we're just talking about two different levels of playing in these two areas. And again, it is part of America's programs to make sure that they can continue to exploit some of the places in Africa. Therefore, even their, let's say, people who complain about how much money they make in America are nothing compared to some of the people in South Africa in terms of complaints, or Africa in general.
Compared to some of the things I've seen here in South Africa, we are a privileged people. I want you guys to talk about that a little bit, because we did have a chance to visit Soweto. We actually had a chance to actually walk with and, walk through one of the townships, walk through the township, excuse me. And
I actually remember there was this British show that was almost like a Scared Straight show, where they would take people to the Caribbean or Africa and have them live there for a week. Like these kids that were not behaving in their privileged country. They're like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to blah, 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 blah. And then they would take them to Africa and show them extreme poverty. And South Africa was one of the countries on there. And some of these people, they would like start crying looking at some of the ways that some of those people live. I mean, some people not bathing for like a whole week and stuff like that. And then they would be scared straight. And these guys are definitely scared straight. Like the way they're talking, the way they're sitting, you could tell they're like, oh my God. It's like they just lost a war or something. And think about that. That's people's lives. These guys get to go back and just think about this. This is people's lives.
And these are the actual townships. Remember, she's showing drone shots. That girl in the video, she's showing drone shots of these townships that looks like nobody's even in. And it's only like 10 of them. It's only like 10 houses. Okay, these are the townships that people actually live in. All right.
We got firsthand information from one of the residents there, just about how they actually live. So either one of you, go ahead and tell me what you think about the visit to Soweto. And we also will talk about the visit to the museum.
It's not funny, family, but damn, these brothers and sisters, they looking like they just experienced somebody be murdered, boy.
You can see it too. Yeah, it is pretty bad. It's pretty bad. This is why I watch Kehinde Andrews, because, some of the white Europeans, they'll be like, oh, Africa, whatever. And then they'll start making, and Kehinde Andrews, just like when he mentions the Caribbean or any of these places in the world that he says needs reparations, which I agree with, when people try to give a fluffy version of those areas, he will mention, no, those places, they've got some big problems, and you know what it's because, and this is why they need reparations. Real, like, fast. And we don't even need, like, only reparations. Now, you must remember that these places were taken from the Africans, and then when they were finally brought back 30 years ago, remember that. Always remember that. They're rebuilding from that.
Boy, they looking at each other like, damn, do we even want to talk about what we saw? Do we even want to talk about what we saw? Shit.
Him also that was there.
When we first pulled up to the township, a little hesitant to get out.
A little hesitant to get out. And this is actually video of them going into the township, family.
Isn't that kind of crazy? Like, there's little kids walking around the area that have to live in this area, and they're like, oh, we were hesitant to get out. The area where they can choose to live and leave, and which I'm sure they could sense that everybody's looking at their wealth and going, "Oh, there they go."
This is actual video. Okay, so this is real live footage. This is from like a week ago. Okay, well, she uploaded it like a week ago, this video.
But our driver, he assured us it was safe. Honestly, I don't think I was going to get out at first, but I really would have regretted it after the experience that I had. Nice people. The kids, they just seem to be so innocent. It's kids being kids.
So I'm going to say something that's really controversial right now. The reason why he is having the sympathy level that he is having is because he is black. And I'll be honest, a lot of the white people, when they go to these sides, they don't see the level of poverty. They don't see it as a problem the way that you would if you're a black person. That's why these places still exist. In all the wealth, I mean, we've got billionaires around the world who don't even care about South Africa. I mean, they come back here, they sneak back in here and, party it up and then leave. Obviously, the easiest example to give of this is Elon Musk. I think I remember when Australia was in some regional area, was having electricity problems, he donated $1 million worth of solar panels. Meanwhile, South Africa is destitute to the bone, but it's not the right people who are destitute. And think about it, when he first talked about South Africa, it's not the poverty he addressed. It's not Soweto. It's not none of that. He just started talking about genocides. So I want to remind you that this is not some coincidence, some accident why people are living like this.
America, you have to grow up so fast.
And shout out to the babies. Shout out to the babies. I'm not against the South African babies, okay?
Okay, here's what I don't understand. He says he's not against the babies. Are you against the South African adults who probably have, I'll say it again, who probably don't care about Americans, black or white, because they have to focus on feeding themselves right now? They're not in the wealth bracket or the wealth pocket that this girl is in to worry about some of these higher issues or whatever you want to call them. Now, of course, I think what he's doing is petty, and I'm not going to do the same thing back to him and start doing what white people do and let's show the amount of black people in prison in America, or let's show the blah, 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 or any of the stuff that he's doing right now. I don't even want to give more examples. I'm giving fake examples because I don't want it to be a tit for tat thing. But, there's some stuff that I could say about America, especially the black population, which I don't think is worth saying right now. But I want him to get what he wanted to say out. And I wouldn't have even said this part if he didn't say shout out to the babies, which sort of implies that it's screw the African adults who are living in poverty, who have no idea that there's such a thing as an FBA or all these, first of all, wealthy Africans who go to America and then they sort of say bad things about Americans when they get there, and then they go and say, oh, Africans hate us. It's Africans don't even know that you guys exist for the most part.
Shout out to the babies. Again, this is not to make fun of them, but we got to start pulling y'all car. Y'all running around here talking about you're showing mansions and trying to flex lifestyles that your people don't live. Okay, and you're trying to come from us and our lineage. We gotta start checking a lot of this stuff.
It's actually weird that he doesn't understand that he's giving evidence that y'all is not doing it. There is no y'all. It's some random woman who probably has more money than the average black South African, and she doesn't represent anything of that. And the fact that she's using American tropes to try and attack you tells you that she's probably more American minded, centric minded, or European Western minded than the average African. I'll put it another way. It's almost as if, imagine if some person in America makes fun of Africa, and then in return some person goes and attacks the entire black community in the lower areas and starts talking about the problems of the community. And again, I'm just leaving him to do it because, that's what he does. That's fine for him to attack people. But I think these are important things that need to be highlighted, which is why I'm letting them go.
They really have nothing.
Damn.
Their conditions are the poorest I've seen, even than I think some of the homeless people deal with, even in the States. It was
Let that sink in, family. Let that sink in. He said their conditions are worse than the homeless people in the United States.
pretty bad. It was pretty bad. But at the same time, as they live in those conditions, they all had smiles on their faces. They all were pleasant. They all were nice.
Well, don't let the smiles fool you, because without optimism, you're going to not be long for this world. So they definitely have to have that.
But it's definitely a humbling experience coming up. Didn't come up with a whole lot. Raised by a single mom. She worked 2-3 jobs just to make sure we had the things that we needed. And growing up, I guess I never realized what I didn't have, because what I had the things that I had to have to survive. And
So one thing that I'm not going to allow is for one person to talk for an entire people. So even him as an American, the fact that he's got money to just travel to another country tells me that, again, he probably didn't grow up, in certain ways that other people grew up. I mean, most Americans don't even leave America. So, and that's probably not a wealth thing, but he's living a pretty unique lifestyle, and I don't want to stereotype his experience with every other American.
I guess it's the same way with them.
Mm-hmm. You don't know something.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Can't miss what you don't have.
Yeah.
When I got back from the trip, I called my son and I said, I have never seen poverty, or what I have considered to be poverty, the way I have seen this poverty to be.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that these are staunch Pan-Africanist family. They're very Pan-African.
Wait, I don't understand what he means. Like, does he think Pan-Africanism means that Africa is like the most perfect place in the world? And that's not what Pan-African means. They're saying it because it's true. Pan-African doesn't mean pretend Africa is better than any other place. In fact, Pan-African means, I mean, if you've ever watched, even the most controversial Pan-African people will mention the problems that are going on because of white supremacy and stuff like that, that allows these Western countries to have stupid amounts of money, while at the same time trying to demonize some of the poorest places on earth.
They'll throw their lineage. They'll throw foundational Black America. I can't speak for these two individuals because I've never seen them before. But I know the other one, she'll throw Pan-African. She'll throw her lineage under the bus for Pan-Africanism. She crashes out for them Africans. So if they're saying it, family, it was times 10.
I wish he gave examples, and I don't mean ones where he's talking. I wish he played some examples of her saying stuff like that, because without the person saying it, I can't even evaluate it at all. Also, I think everybody's heard that part where people who live in what are called third world countries would definitely think that the people in America are not so, I guess the word is ambitious, because given their platform, where you start. I mean, the way where they starting from nothing, as he says in the video, it's a very different thing. And the fact that some people can build themselves out of that, and the opportunities in America, which is why there's so many foreigners who go there.
It was times 10, okay?
What I feel like we have in the United States of America, and Lord forgive me, and people forgive me too, we have a whole bunch of lazy people.
Oh, Lord. Okay, here we come. So they're in the same boat, family. They're in the same boat. Now it's lazy. I want you to notice how they talk about each situation. Notice how when they talk about, and she said Americans, but I'm going to include foundational Black Americans in there because we are Americans.
So I definitely have to comment on this one because, people, they like ignoring issues. And again, I said, I don't know how these two people grew up themselves, which I think they're making the era that he's talking about, which is they're taking their personal experience and then expanding it and saying the reason why people in America who live in poverty or live in the Western version of poverty are poor is because they're lazy. And like I said, I don't like that type of attitude, even though, to a person who comes from Africa, right, who moves to America, they're like, oh my God, there's so much opportunity, which by the way happens here in South Africa as well. It's like people coming from Nigeria who come to South Africa go, there's so much opportunity. Your situation is different. Your situation is different. I think her situation, how she grew up and everything and where she grew up, is going to be very different than the people that she's talking about. So he is right about that I believe him now that this might be the basic idea, and I don't think that is Pan-Africanist to say like, oh, African Americans are lazy. I definitely don't think that is Pan-Africanist at all. I think there's a level of hatred that comes with that, which I don't think is okay. Now, I don't want to be the person split hairs and stuff, but I have to say, she did say Americans are lazy. She did not say black Americans are lazy. She said Americans. So the way that you could take that is to mean that um, there are so many opportunities there that they can't see them in America. And that guy did explain that in the beginning, that they just can't see them. They don't realize what opportunity. And if you're a person who's living in some level of education, there's opportunities you can see everywhere where other people are just blind to them. This does not make people lazy, it just makes them uninformed, and it gets scary. I mean, how many people have told you like move? A lot of people don't move from where they came from, where they were born, and simply moving sometimes can change your entire economic situation. In some cases for the better, in some cases for the worse, but you have the opportunity to go back. I'm not saying like take all your money and then move, but there's some areas that have more opportunity than others, and you have to go check sometimes.
When they talk about foundational Black Americans who are homeless, who are jobless, it's always you're lazy.
Now, to be fair, they said Americans, not foundational Black Americans or African Americans. They said Americans. Now, the image they showed is a bunch of Black people, so no excuses for them either. So I do think that there is possibly a meaning that they mean Black people, and I don't know what it is. Is it conservative thinking that throws this lazy thing around? Like, oh, people are just lazy.
And they're so delicate on the other end when they're talking about Africans who are living worse, according to them, than homeless people. Peep it.
Because you have the ability to do a whole lot more than you're doing. And not only that, homeless shelters are everywhere in the States. Mm-hmm. The homeless can go take showers. They feed them. They clothe. They'll give them clothes. Whatever they need. They'll even sometimes give them housing.
So earlier I mentioned that you can't compare Africa to America, and I mean that in all ways. Like, obviously you can compare them if you want to, but I mean that in all ways. There's a lot of things that are affecting some Americans that are going to put them in a position where it's going to be much harder to get out of things. And of course, we've got nutrition, we've got all these other things that matter. And in Africa, we've got the similar type of problems. But you can't just say like, oh, if you look at this, if you look at that. Now, like I said, there are some people who like that show I was talking about, who take people from the West, send them to Africa as a scared straight program. And some of those guys, they just get back to it. Oh my God, let me do my homework. Cause damn, I didn't know. Cause some people, they forget that the bottom is the real bottom. The real bottom, the one that you get when literally you can't eat and you die. That's the real bottom.
It's so many informal housing communities here I've just never seen anything like it.
Close your
And
mind.
of course,
This is the township. This is the place she was talking about. They were, they were living this great life. Okay. The girl from the TikTok video.
my first thought
Damn, I even forgot about that TikTok girl. This is all to bash one TikTok girl, dragging in a whole bunch of a whole community.
is, oh my God, what do we do? How can we help? Now, I've tried to help homeless in the USA. A lot of them, they don't want help.
No.
They like it just like it is. But
Well, of course, I can't dismiss everything that she is saying, that, some homeless people don't want her help. But of course, there's context, because a lot of homeless people are drug addicts. Some of them have mental illness. And so saying they don't want help is something else. Also, again, if you've ever had someone in your life who seems like they don't want help, you'll notice that there's always something going on that is bigger and wider. So I do understand him rolling his eyes.
they like it is because they don't have to be this way. They can choose. They, people, they can choose what they want to eat.
Okay.
I mean, these people can't choose what they want to eat.
So again, in order to inform myself about the homeless in America, I've watched a lot of documentaries, and it's not, the way she's saying it sounds like it's awesome to be homeless in America, but it is not. I mean, we're talking about like the threat of violence at all times, constantly, moving, and like these people will do anything, like even gratify people who they probably should not for money, like pretending like they just don't want to go to homeless shelters or whatever. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And of course, there's also that time when there was like a housing crisis or whatever, and then a whole bunch of people became homeless, and they had a hard time trying to get that lot of people back into normal society, like houses just being taken away from people. But like I said, I don't want to be petty. I don't want to show tents or whatever from America and be like, oh, look at the poverty. It's like, no. All humans deserve some level of dignity, and I don't think I should drag them in so that I can win a YouTube video.
They eat what's available. They eat off the land. They eat in groups, which I thought that was beautiful to see these little girls eating with their hands.
Again, peep how they talk about them. When it comes to us, you just chose to live that way. When it comes to Foundation Money, y'all chose to live that way. They start finger wagging. When it comes to them, oh, well, yeah, this was the worst poverty I've ever seen, but they were happy.
Yeah, so I understand what he's saying, and I agree with him, but in both cases, there is a level of choice. So I do understand. I mean, I agree. All of these situations, it's because of much bigger situations. But at the end of the day, whether you're American or South African, you're living in deep poverty, you gotta still make choices. Otherwise, you just like give up now. That's the only other option outside of trying, is just go dig a hole and go sleep, hope that you don't wake up the next day.
Well, if they're happy, then that means they're choosing to live that way, right? If you ain't got no problem with how you living, that's on you. Let's be clear, and let's take the.
Well, he said little girls. Like, what do you want the little girls to do? Like, these are little girls. Like, what do you mean? They're like 6 or something. What are they gonna do? Go get a job in the mines or something? Like, they're talking. She's saying that they share food and blah blah blah, and these little girls are trying to make their way. It didn't say they were happy. Well, not happy in the sense of satisfied, but happy in the sense of like they're not going to be like, oh, I'm living here, I don't deserve to live anymore.
Training wheels off of Africa. Africa, y'all want to talk cash shit? Y'all want to sit up here and wag your finger? Okay, let's wag our finger back.
Again, it's not y'all. There's no y'all. Most people in Africa don't even care about this. Like, this means nothing to them. And by the way, I want to make this very clear. This FBA thing is just a way of bragging about being Western. It's got nothing to do with being a Black American. It's just taking Western tropes and throwing them at other places. And I think usually there's an easier way of retaliating against Westerners, especially if they're like white, because you can say, yeah, well, you guys are responsible for what's happening here in Africa or Asia or any of these places, South America, that have the same levels of wealth disparity. But when someone of the African American stuff, they don't pull, they think they're not going to say that they're part of the Western world. And there is something kind of funny about calling yourself a foundational Black American to isolate yourself from that Western world and then bragging about it at the same time.
Nigga, them white South Africans ain't living in squalor. Them white South Africans ain't living in shanty towns and slums. The majority of them aren't. Okay? Them white South Africans eating steak. They controlling the farmland. They eating all the vegetables. They are 10%, what, 10% of the population? Y'all sitting over there, 90% of the population, smiling, happy, living in squalor.
What do you want us to do? Genocide them? You know how fast they will bomb Africa if that happens. Like, if we actually came with, like, and this is why the military thing just won't work. If we came and tried to do anything, you see how quick, for a false genocide, what they do. Like, what do you want us to do? The only thing we can do is set up laws. It's not our fault that, you know, the political leaders that sort of freed South Africa are now sellouts. And they bend over to the Western world, the world that you brag about.
Huh? Huh? You telling me you got all these animals, all this fertile land that's underneath your feet, and you're living in squalor?
We used to have all the animals. Now they belong to the white people. And we can't get them back because anything we do is going to be considered a genocide.
But we're the ones who lazy. No. It's foundational Black America. We're the ones who lazy. We're 13% of the population. We're in the belly of the beast. They spend trillions of dollars keeping us in control. We're surrounded by tanks and tethers.
You do not live in the belly of the beast. I don't even want to compare oppression. I don't even understand that angle. But no, that is not the belly of the beast. Americans, they did well because of themselves. Let me just start there. Black Americans did well because of themselves, 100%. They had to pull themselves out of several dire situations. But that is a very different thing than having your entire country collapse. Like, the white people that you're talking about, they don't care if Africa collapses. What are they going to do? At least there, they got to care a little, because if you guys completely lose everything, it's going to affect them too. Whereas in Africa, they could completely isolate people and go, okay, you guys live over there. And then they're just in wealth. And again, you know South African history. You know that they've been dominating South Africa, the belly of the beast, or Africa in general, for way longer. Way long. We're talking, again, 30 years only.
And the moment we end up jobless, here y'all come wagging y'all fingers. And I'm talking to the FBA coons too.
Again, who is y'all? Y'all as in Africa in general. Africa in general does not care about this. You're talking about a very specific people who are conservative minded, who like saying tough talk nonsense.
You dig? But then when it comes to Africa, oh, well, they were happy. Listen, it ain't no excuse for that. It ain't no excuse for that. If they kept the same energy they had with us, with them white South Africans, they'll have them about the pain.
Yeah, but now you're saying the same thing that he was saying. Now you're saying there's no excuse. No, there is excuses. There's a lot of excuses on both sides. For everybody, there's excuses. You can't just be like, oh no, blah blah blah. If they do keep the same energy. Black people in South Africa, they've got a huge grudge against white South Africans. They're so scared they never want to vote for another white government in South Africa. I mean, some of them do, but those are privileged black people who realize that, they can chuckle and be like, why are other black people poor? And I showed you again this obsession with this idea that Africans hate Americans. I don't know where that comes from.
They supported the Ryder brothers over there, like Julius Malema. They'll be fine. And they'll have the white South Africans again out the paint.
Well, I definitely agree with that part, that Julius Malema is probably one of the people who recognizes the issues 100% and realizes that it's actually white capital and European countries that are to blame for a lot of these things. Now, if he stopped doing some of the other controversial stuff that he does, then he could actually lead. Also, you're probably unaware of some of the accusations that he had for corruption when he used to belong to the majority government. So there's also a lot of distrust because we don't know who to trust. I mean, you're saying we could just, we'll just support this guy. We've supported people and then they all turn out to be corrupt.
See, we love y'all Pan-Africanists. Y'all love to put on the training wheels when it comes to Africans. You're always trying to lighten it up. Oh, well, it's the West. It's this. It's that. No, it's not.
Yeah, I was starting to sense that it was going this way. So these FBA guys clearly are just Westerners at this point, and they're coming at it from a purely Western point of view. To say it's not the West that did anything, come on. Now you're just playing games. Like, who do you think it is? You just mentioned that the wealth belongs to the white people in South Africa. So what do you think that is? Are they like non-Western white people?
Like you said, they were happy. They were smiling, living in them slums. They were smiling.
Okay, what does that have to do with it not being the fault of the West that they're poor? So if I see a homeless guy who's happy, who's like smiling, I'm gonna be like, okay, that guy just loves being poor. That's so dumb.
We don't be doing that. We be complaining. And then they criticize us for complaining. They always talk about we complain too much.
Mate, you just said it's not the West that caused the poverty in Africa. If it's not the West in Africa, then you definitely don't want to blame the West in America. I don't know where the thinking comes from. I mean, I'm guessing, and I'm starting to see now, just in general, that these FBAs are just another offshoot of white Westernism, and they're basically acclimating to Western thinking, acclimating to white thinking.
Yeah, when we're old, damn it, we're gonna shake the table trying to get what's owed to us. And that's why our homeless are living better than their people in poverty. You did? Because we're going to make sure we look out for our brothers and sisters. We're going to make sure that, when we can't go in certain establishments and when we can't get access to capital, we're going to call that out. And we're going to stomp. And we're going to shake the table to make sure that happens.
Right. And Africans never do that. That's why there's no political movements that ever got rid of any white people in Africa. Every white people are just in control, and there's no movements. We haven't been, freeing ourselves from Western powers, which again, I have to say, in your areas, I mean, think about it. If there was a genocide in South Africa, if we actually started just going and getting them, like, how quick do you think they would bring military into South Africa and try to get rid of us? They literally summoned the president of South Africa for some fake nonsense. Imagine what they will do if there's actually some real stuff going on. And again, they're not just going to give up the power that they have.
That's why we're in the condition we're in. They love to sit up here and act like, as foundational Black Americans, we were handed, white people just gave us something in America. No, we had to shake the table.
So again, he's just making people up in his head. Who are these they people who said that you guys were handed stuff? White people handed you stuff. Who said that? You're just making people up and then debating them. It's called straw manning. You're just making people up and then debating them. You don't have to be angry about everything. Also, with this keep the energy thing that you're doing, I mean, I've seen his entire channel. I haven't seen him comment once about white people who say all kinds of negative things about Black Americans. Isn't it weird that he's coming this hard for Africans?
You dig? We had to have those long, hot summers of 1967 when Black folks were coming home from war, started sniping folks from the rooftops. We had to.
Yeah, we're going to cover the rest of this video some other time because this is starting to trigger me way too much. I understand that he's now trying to do the whole, like, we did this, we did that, we did this, we did that. You can't play a video of Africans suffering and then pretend like you guys went through some whole worse thing that when you're sitting here holding, basically what you're doing is you're being the intermediary between the West and the non-Western countries, defending them because you think you're in a better position because you live in the West.